welcome, flip clock fans, to a problem you're likely never to have. But I want to show you this because I recently sold one of these Zenith Circle of Sound clock radios on eBay, and it's come up with a problem. The clock does not alarm properly to the time. Now, I didn't even test the alarm. I had no idea someone was actually going to use the clock. Just kidding. But seriously, I didn't even test the alarm, didn't think to. Now, I don't mess with these mechanisms for a reason. Here's another one. The way they made these, they used rivets and they would melt the plastic in place. They did not intend for people to mess with them. I've often wondered, well, how are you going to place the bulbs here? You're going to have to get into here. And I've never done that. So how would it get off course? Well, I figured, well, maybe this tape is coming off track. So I forced it off track, but then I found out that it's as likely to catch. So like here it's set properly to where it goes off and it's in line here. So that's what you'd see. But it's just as likely to recatch in between numbers. So you wouldn't, that's not likely the problem. And plus it was hard to derail this and it's harder to get it back on. So that's not the problem. So it has to be with the alarm. Now we're going to talk about, well, how does this work? Now it works very similarly to, just a regular vintage flip clock. Somehow you have to, the clock mechanism has to tell the alarm mechanism what time it is. Now this is a mechanical situation where it's going to trip an alarm. So let's see if we can get to do that. This is a radio that's alarm set. So let's see when it goes off. Okay, so once your alarm goes off, it needs to be somehow turn it all the way on and then off. Kind of resets it for the next time. So it did not go off properly. It's not going off at the right time. It's going off a lot early. So how does this clock know what time it is to set this alarm off? And that's the whole point. Now the question will come up: how did it get in that state in the first place? I have no idea. So I just don't know. I don't know if someone messed with it or if it got knocked. I don't know. So how does this clock even know what time it is? So the way it does is there is a gear back in here, and it's going to be hard to see. There is a brass gear back in there that communicates with the clock and tells it what time it is. So you can see when the clock is moving. Let's unplug this. When the clock is moving, this wheel is moving too, but it's moving because of this brass gear back there. I'll try to show a detail of what I'm pointing to. So that's the brass gear back in there that's connected to this wheel that lets it know what time it is. So the best way I think to kind of get close to it is to get near 9 o'clock, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so at 9 o'clock, it just so happens that there is a let me move it to 9 o'clock here. There's a hill here. Right here, near the 9 o'clock. And what has to happen is when it's time to go off, there is an extension on this gear, on this metal gear here, that's supposed to line up with that. Regardless of what the time is, right now to make it think it's 9, we need to get that moved around here. Now you can't see it yet. So that it's near that hump. Now, back in the back there, that gear, I have to derail this gear. So I'm using this pick to push it off that gear. Okay, it's off. Now it's floating freely. So I'm going to move this around. Now there is a smaller hump. So there's a smaller hump here that matches a smaller hump down there, near 3 or so. So I'm going to bring it around until I bring this. There it is. So that it's near there. There we go. So they're lined up. So now we've got to make sure that gear drops back onto the It is. It fell back in there. Now that you should see this pop or click when it hits around 9. There. So it's getting close. So that's a lot closer. So now how are we going to tune it in? How are we going to dial it in? So what we're going to do, let's go to 1. I'm trying to be able to hear that click. So let's see what happens. Boom. Well, that's pretty close. So that's actually pretty close. Now, if it wasn't close, I could disconnect it again and then readjust the wheel. So that's pretty much how you do it. You may have to tweak it a little bit. Again, if you know flip clocks and vintage clocks, 1256 for 1 o'clock, that's pretty close. You know, you may learn that, if I set the clock here, if I set it just a little bit higher, it'll go off closer to 1. That's actually pretty close. So, very strange little situation, something you're likely to never run into, but it kind of has the same principle of how the clock lets the alarm know what time it is, and that's kind of how it does it in this situation. Well, I hope this helps one person in the world. Thanks for taking the time.